In this video, I'm going to describe the 7 stages of process that someone passes through in becoming a person, according to Carl Rogers. So Carl Rogers was a humanistic psychotherapist, sold many best-selling books about the practices of clinical psychology and psychotherapy, and he was a practicing psychotherapist for over 30 years. So this is based on many hundreds of cases with college students, young adults, adolescents, elderly adults. So there's plenty of data to support these central tendencies that he saw, or these general tendencies across people. Now, when I describe this in class, I like to preface it with a couple of basic questions about like the purpose of life and how we organize and direct our behaviors. So some questions for you to consider going into this would be, to you, what's the purpose or meaning of life? What's this all about? And so think about that for a few minutes. Also, in your behavior, at what times are you performing for other people? Do you ever play certain roles where you're not being totally authentic, you're not being really you, you're playing a role like you're imitating somebody else so that other people will see a particular side of you? Not all of you, but just like a certain side of you, and maybe like a mask or something. So what sort of roles do you play? Another question is, what rules do you live by? Are there any rules that are always in the back of your mind that dictate what you can and can't do? Like if there's one piece of cake left and you really want it, but you go, oh, I shouldn't be selfish. And so that would be one of the rules that we live by. Or if we want to sleep in and skip class, we might say, but I want to be responsible, and so that would be another rule that we live by. Just reflect on some of those things, and maybe even think, what would happen if you let those rules go? So you stopped living by the need to prove that you're selfish, the need to prove that you're responsible, the need to prove that you're nice and polite and kind, and beautiful and intelligent, whatever the case may be, all the different rules that you live by. And what if we stopped feeling like we needed to perform for others? We just got to be ourselves. So those are some questions to think about ahead of time. A lot of students would say something like, chaos would ensue if we let those rules go. Everyone would just do whatever they wanted all the time, and just everyone would be taking advantage of everybody else because no one's directing our behaviors. But to begin, Carl Rogers and many of the humanistic psychotherapists would argue that chaos would not ensue. In fact, something beautiful would ensue, and that's authentic existence. We wouldn't feel the need to prove to others that we are a particular way. We could just be our way, and that our way is good, and it's healthy. It's obviously the best for us because it's ours, but it's also healthy. It's self-actualizing. It's salutary. And so these stages of becoming a person are what Rogers sees as the major checkpoints or the major benchmarks towards complete self-acceptance. So on the far end, we have stage 1, where someone's so out of touch with who they are that they don't realize that they're following rules, and they don't realize that they're playing roles. They don't realize that most of what they do day to day is phony, is fake, it's inauthentic, it's disingenuous, it's playing a role, it's make-believe, it's all imaginary. And then on the far other end, realizing that who I am moment to moment is always changing, and I accept that. I accept those changes, I accept the past, the present, and the always unfolding future. So here are the 6 stages in between those, and I'll describe them really briefly. So the first one is stage 1. Keep in mind that somebody at this stage, even though they're really out of touch with their own wants, desires, their own likes and dislikes, their own motivation, and their own identity, everything is roles being played and rules being followed. They won't see anything wrong. They won't feel like anything's wrong because in the role they're playing, in their imagination, they're doing it all right, and so there's nothing to go wrong. no one can experience a problem if they don't think that problems can possibly exist. So in this example, Rogers writes, feelings are neither recognized or owned. And so there is no process that unfolds in a person at stage 1. Feelings are neither recognized nor owned. And so if I get upset about something or if I'm happy about something, I imagine that I'm not. So no, I don't get upset about anything. No, I guess I really don't get happy about anything either. I just kind of do whatever. I just kind of go along with the flow. Personal constructs are rigid, and so I'm a nice guy. Yeah, but weren't you mean to that lady in the grocery store parking lot the other day? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a nice guy, so I only see things that are consistent with that sort of concept because I'm a nice guy. Close relationships or being understood by another person, that's actually perceived as something that's dangerous. And so all there is what's on the surface. Any attempt to go just a millimeter beneath the surface, that's dangerous. That's personal stuff, and I don't want to get bogged down with personal stuff. And that's just there's nothing to that. Not even bother. That makes me uncomfortable. And so this is someone in the first stage. So he has a quote that he pulls from examples of studies, case studies in the past. And so one of the quotes that he pulls for this example is, quote, "Well, I'll tell you, it always seems a little bit nonsensical to talk about oneself except in times of dire necessity," unquote. So why would we sit and talk about myself for 30 or 40 minutes? There's no reason to. So unless it's a dire necessity, which I can't imagine a scenario where it would be necessary, there's no reason to talk about myself, so there's no reason to be here. As you can imagine, this person would never go seek a therapist. They would never see anything as problematic. They would never see an opportunity for growth. And so they would be stuck. Consequently, they wouldn't have an opportunity to grow. They would be absolutely stuck in this respect. You couldn't convince them because then you would be manipulating them. All you can do is accept them. And then they might realize that there's something worth accepting. And so his whole method with this isn't judging. It isn't necessarily categorizing, although it sounds a lot like categorization. It's about accepting another person. And if you can accept that person, then they'll feel more comfortable with themselves. They may not see anything to accept or anything worth not accepting, but they've never really considered it. And so when you accept them, and so he calls this unconditional positive regard. And so this person thinks there's nothing wrong, and so when you accept them, they're like, there's nothing to accept. Why would you need to accept me? I don't need acceptance. Right, you get the idea because they're repressed. All right, so second stage. We start to see a little bit of loosening up with respect to awareness of the self, but we're still a long ways away from self-acceptance and a recognition that for the most part, we are phony, and we're playing roles or following rules. So let's see. Expression begins to flow in regard to non-self topics in this second stage. Problems are perceived as external to yourself. So for example, in the wake of the hurricane, you might say, yeah, the hurricane really messed a lot of things up. So there's Hurricane Michael that came through Albany and southwest Georgia and the panhandle of Florida, disrupted a lot of lives over a large stretch of land. And so to experience trauma in the wake of that, you might say, yeah, Hurricane Michael affected a lot of people and affected them differently. And so you're talking about something that you've gone through, something that's personal to you, but seeing it as something out there that happens to other people. And yeah, you might be part of that group of other people, but you're indirectly referring to yourself. So you're recognizing impact. You're not just this stoic barnacle on the side of a boat that just stays there forever, nothing ever changes, or like a gargoyle on the side of a building. You're seeing that things do affect other things, but not you, just other things. So, for example, one of the quotes that he gives, I guess that I suspect my father has often felt very insecure in his business relations. I might say in the wake of the hurricane, yeah, my wife has experienced emotional trauma, which is true, but it's also true of me. So why am I talking about her? I can see that other people are influenced, but what about me too? So there's no sense of responsibility here, but that's a step in the right direction in terms of self-acceptance, in the recognition that who you are is a process that's always unfolding. But so you're seeing this process, but seeing it in other people and sort of in an objective sort of light. It's better than not noticing anything because, we don't talk about personal stuff, but it's still a long ways away from where we're headed. Okay, stage 3. A freer flow of expression about the self, but only as an object. And so you're able to finally view yourself. So you're not talking about other people and how they're affected or other objects, but you're seeing it about yourself. So for example, he writes of one of his patients, quote, "And there is a matter of, well, how much do you leave yourself open to marriage? And if your professional vocation is important, da-da-da," end quote. So talking about yourself in the third person. So I might be thinking about whether or not to get married. I might be thinking about whether or not to have kids. And so, they say that children bring happiness, or they say that a long-term relationship is what life is all about. And so what does it mean to me? I'm thinking about those questions, not what do other people say about this, not what does having children mean just in general. That's all too abstracted. It's almost indifferent to me, yet it's still important to me. That's why I'm bringing it up, yet I'm pretending like it's not, and so it's still kind of at a distance. An expression about yourself is always in terms of an objective in reflection of others or being reflected in others. So if I'm impatient or if I have short-term temper, it might be, I got that from my dad or I got that from my mom. So it's not me, it's somebody else. Or, I hate school, but that's because, the schooling system is corrupt or something like that. I'm a bad student, but that's because standard tests are dumb. So it's never anything personal. Again, there's still no responsibility, but you're still starting to see how things affect you. So here we're on stage 3. You can see that we made considerable progress, but we're still really far away from stage 7. All right. 4th stage. With these next stages, you'll notice that the changes aren't as significant as the ones in the past because there's less space to make up, and so the changes are more subtle. So here we see an expression of the process in our experience. So rather than say hurricanes affect people, you're recognizing that it affected me, or it had affected me. And so, the hurricane affected me, but I'm not expressing that it still affects me or that it is affecting me, right? Those are process statements. Those are what's unfolding right now. But to say that it did affect me, because I got mad that one time, I got disappointed and frustrated that one time, I'm looking in retrospect, and I'm still categorizing and classifying, maybe even judging. I probably got too upset for that. I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this instead. I'm still categorizing and classifying myself, but in the past, so it's not present yet. I also experience these as almost object-like, and so I experienced trauma, trauma had me momentarily, or I had this traumatic experience, the experience has passed, I'm fine now, I don't see myself as this process that's always unfolding. I see it just as a me, and then trauma came, and then it's gone now. So it's still an objective way of relating to myself, and not a recognition that who I am is always changing. So trauma comes and goes, and I continue to transform. So that's an improvement, because now I'm talking about being affected by something, but not now, not in the present, not as it's unfolding. It's something that happened to me in the past, and again, it's objective. 5th stage. So there's only a couple stages left. Now feelings are expressed freely as in the present. Quote, "I kind of expect you to reject me for sharing this, but I want to be open and honest." So that's recognizing that I have a feeling right now that's welling up inside of me, but still you recognize that that feeling is something that you're concerned about. And so if I say, you might hate me for saying this, but blah, 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 then what I'm expressing is actually a concern that what I have to say is mean and that I'm a mean person. But when I say that you'll hate me for saying it, whose responsibility does it become? I make it your responsibility. So I'm thinking, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say, and if you want to hate me, go for it. But what I feel is that this might be hate-worthy, and that's something that I'm doing. So this might be a mean thing for me to do. Not something that you find to be mean, but I might be a mean person, and here's what it is. So it's not entirely processual. I'm not recognizing that I'm the process that's changing, but also I'm projecting the significance of that onto you and not myself. And then the third part of this is I am worried about who I am. I'm concerned that being mean might be a bad thing. I'm concerned that I'm not being the kind of role that I wish to play or the rules that I wish to follow. So I brought those up earlier. This is where it really becomes significant. We judge ourselves a lot, and we judge ourselves through the eyes of others. So what we often do is imagine how other people will see us, and we want to be seen in a particular way. So if we want to be seen as kind, we'll do things that make us seem kind, even though we might do something that's kind and someone might not recognize or appreciate it. Wouldn't that miss the sort of point of being seen as kind? Well, kindness is a property that belongs to a person, not a judgment about it. And so kindness I do for myself, and that's personal. Meanness I do for myself, and that's personal, and I'm taking ownership of those things. But when we need other people to see and judge us that way, that's about us too. But we're not taking ownership of those. So when we see that other people will be upset about what we do, or other people will be happy about what we do, what we're doing is projecting our hope of how we'll be seen onto them. And now we're trying to manipulate them. And now we're missing out on our responsibility in all of this. So he writes, there's a surprise or even fright at the feelings which bubble through. So it's a rejection or denial of part of who you are. Yeah, I really want to yell at you, but then you think I'm mean, so I'm not going to. Well, that's a withholding of self-expression because you're worried that who you are will be rejected. You don't accept yourself. So stage 6 is a step beyond even that. You stop seeing yourself as an object that can be judged and evaluated in discrete ways, as good or bad, helpful or unhelpful, mean or nice. So the process of who you are is more free. The feeling can be expressed. If I'm angry, I can be angry. If I'm sad, I can be sad. If I'm in love, I can be in love. And I don't have to stop those or judge them or say, oh, I don't want to upset anybody. I can just be myself and allow people to be upset if they wish to be upset. Allow people to be attracted if they want to be attracted. And so it would be more of an organic interaction. Let's see. A present feeling is directly experienced with immediacy and richness. And so the self as an object tends to disappear and experiencing takes on a process quality. So if I'm hungry, I experience my hunger in its fullness, in the moment. And as I'm eating, I can actually feel that satisfaction, the satiation occur, and the feeling of taste. All of these processes are occurring in the moment, but the same thing happens whenever I'm angry. Have you ever noticed yourself becoming angry? What we often do is just try to repress it and reject it and make it go away. We might even black out, which is a complete dissociation from our anger experience. But have you ever just noticed yourself becoming angry? Since the hurricane just happened here, it's fresh in my mind, and so not getting a lot of sleep, dealing with no power and no water and all of these stuff, I was regularly frustrated. And to feel the frustration come on and realizing that, you know what, I need to rest a little bit, I need to take a nap, I need to get something to eat, I need more water, and accepting that frustration as meaningful, as insightful into what's happening with me at the moment, and accepting that. I can accept frustration not as I have to punch something or I have to yell at somebody or I have to scream. No, I recognize that this is a deficit in my organism. There's a deficit. I'm missing water, I'm missing sleep, I'm missing nutrition. And so the emotional the visceral emotions that pass through, I can accept and appreciate and learn something about myself through them. But notice we're talking about emotions here. We're still not fully, I guess we're accepting the emotions, we're recognizing that they're happening. It's sort of like a noticing and finally recognizing, and then that's a very insightful time. It's a very exciting time. You learn a great deal when you do that, and in fact, you learn there's really nothing more to existence than that. We talk about purpose of life, and I had a student say that without a purpose defined, without like rules, then there's nothing to live for. But that's not true, because every moment you're becoming something new, and we have motivations that we follow through, and that process is self-actualizing. We become more of ourselves the more we continue to accept and trust that process and actualize those individual potentials, which we do simply by following those desires, accepting those desires. And so that's what you live for. And things manifest out of that we couldn't possibly have planned or predicted ahead of time. And that's us being ourselves. So stage 7 looks an awful lot like stage 6, but what we see is a continued acceptance of that process. Not becoming a particular kind of person, but just the process of becoming in general, or rather the process of becoming for us, which sometimes may be a great day of productivity, and other days might be a day of laziness, but one's not better than the other because both of them are expressions of ourselves. So again, this looks an awful lot like stage 6, but stage 6 is a beginning to become acquainted with it. Stage 7 is a continued recognition of this, and then what Rogers calls a growing acceptance of this. So that's in about 22 minutes, those 7 stages of growth into becoming a person, based again on those first 3 questions that I asked you, and then in the context of the humanistic impulse in psychotherapy and how that changes or differs considerably from cognitive psychotherapy, which hopefully I'll be able to post a video about here shortly.